1. I have a weekly meeting for a community service group I volunteer with. After that meeting, several of us then go to our neighborhood bar and grill chain restaurant to have some food and drinks and talk about whatever. This place can sometimes be crowded, especially when a big sports game or tournament is going on, as there are many television screens that play those events. On one of these occasions, during the annual March Madness College basketball tournament, I arrived to find the parking lot completely and totally full, except for one space. Unfortunately, it was open because the person who parked in the space to the left had parked over the line into the open space. I was able to squeeze my truck into the space, but just barely, and my passenger side was less than a foot away from the driver's side of the car, parked immediately to my right. I figured in the next half an hour or so the place would calm down, and I'd go move my truck so it wasn't blocking this other car. But then the food and drinks came out, and my group of friends and I were talking and having a good time, and I forgot about my truck. Oops. About an hour later, the place had mostly cleared out. Game had ended, and it had started to quiet down. I'm sitting with my friends at a high-top table just adjacent to the bar, and overhear a man talking to the bartender about how he can't get into his car because it's blocked. Oh crap. I jump up and say, "Sorry man, that's me. The lot was full and was the only available spot. I'll go move it," and I was going to finish by offering to buy the guy a drink on my tab for his troubles, but he cut me off. "Go move your fucking truck." This complete rando I've never spoken to before says to me, "Excuse me?" As if on some mysterious cue, the TouchTunes jukebox finishes the song it was playing, and nothing else was queued up, so it goes dead silent in the place. I could not make this up if I tried. It was eerie how this happened exactly at that moment. "I said go move your fucking truck," Dude Bro repeats. So I instead sit back down with my buddies and say, "Nope. Not if you're going to talk to me like that. Happy to move it, but if you come at me like that, I'm not going to do anything for you." "What?" The now somewhat angry but also surprised dude says. "Crawl across the fucking passenger side for all I care. Try not to act like a jerk to folks, especially people you've never met. I'm not going to do things for people I've never met who act like that to me right off the bat." He then asks what I want him to do about it and whines that he's blocked in. Try asking nicely. "Or like I said, you can climb across your passenger seat for all I care," I replied. I turn back to my friends. A few moments pass. The guy then responds with, "Will you please go move your truck?" I jump in and with the most aggressively cheerful demeanor say, "Absolutely, more than happy to move it for you. Sorry it was blocking you. The lot was pretty full and someone parked across the line on the other side of me." Then I went and moved the truck. He followed me out and kept talking, probably at me, but mostly to himself, saying, "Don't know what you wanted me to do. I can't get in my car with your truck blocking me." I moved the truck, apologized again, and waved goodbye to the person as he drove off. I went back inside the restaurant and saw my friends trying very hard to contain their laughter. The manager, holding the cordless phone, looking relieved, and the bartender and some of the patrons laughing, and supposedly clapping. My friends told me that part, I didn't see it. The manager, it turns out, had dialed 911, and was standing at the door waiting to press the last one in case a fight broke out. So he was happy to not have to call the police for a bar fight. 2. Back when I was 17, I worked at a dental surgery as a receptionist. The first patient of the day was unnecessarily rude to me. She complained to me that the dentist hadn't called her in yet and demanded to know why. I called the dentist, but he didn't pick up the phone. So I told the woman that she would be called in shortly and to please be patient and understanding. She was the first patient of the day. She commented that because I was so young, I probably didn't check her in as waiting properly, and that I'm useless at my job, but I stayed professional and reiterated that she would be called in shortly. It might not be relevant, but this woman was approximately 50 or 60 years old. Her dentist called her into his room 30 seconds later, and then left her in the chair and came to me and asked if I would be his temporary dental nurse, as the usual one had not turned up to work. This was why the lady had to wait for so long. 5 minutes. It was nothing to do with me, and not putting down on the computer that she had not arrived. I walked into the room, and the lady's face fell when she saw that I was her dental nurse. She was previously smiley and happy with the dentist. No complaints to him about the wait time. I deliberately didn't suction her mouth properly during the scale and polish because she was so rude to me and it made her gag. She was then rude to the dentist and ripped out her impressions, a cast of your teeth, before they had set because they also made her gag. She told the dentist that he was useless at his job because of this. The dentist, who had been qualified for 15 years at the time, was annoyed, and explained to her to not rip out the impressions before they set, because then they were unusable, and try to do the impressions again, but the same thing happened. After this, the dentist said she would have to rebook her appointment, since he was running late by over 25 minutes at this point, and other patients had begun to complain about the wait times. The dentist told me to book the lady another appointment at reception, since by this point, his actual dental nurse had showed up. So he would ask her to clean up and prepare the room for the next patient. When I reached the reception desk, the dentist called me and discreetly asked me not to book her next appointment with him, but to book her in with the owner's daughter instead, since she had the authority to refuse service to rude patients. I smiled politely and asked the lady when she would like to book her next appointment for, but she just told me to F off and stormed out without rebooking. Her husband, who had been seated in the waiting room this whole time, apologized to me for his wife's behavior before he left. Once the owner found out and asked me and the dentist what had happened, a note was put on her file and she was denied any further appointments because of her rudeness when she tried to call up and rebook. She would have been called and notified, but she had given us an incorrect number that was no longer in use. 3. This is not my story but my mother's. Warning for slight racism, by the way. Nothing like hate crimes, but still thought I'd mention it. My mother, Linda, 54 and Mexican, is one of the most hard-working people I've ever met. And no matter the odds, she gets stuff done. About a month and a half ago, she got fired from a salon. One of the managers, named Trish, female mid-20s Vietnamese, fired her for missing work so much. For context, my mother has slight arthritis and has a dislocated disc in her neck that she got thanks to a car accident that she said should have killed me, thanks to a small truck hitting her back seat behind her when she fell asleep at the wheel due to overworking, among other things. My mother hated working for Trish and her husband. They had her working terrible hours. The other nail techs treated her like trash and talked in the back in Vietnamese, didn't pick up after themselves, and was only there because her niece, my cousin Lisa, late 40s, managed to hook her up when their last cleaning lady left. Gee, I wonder why. But on to the story. My mom, after being let go, decided to reapply to food stamps, and needed a letter from Trish of when she was let go, and when she was last paid and stuff like that. So she did what any reasonable person would do and texted Trish and asked for the letter. Or in this case, all she needed was a text. But Trish kept blowing her off about it until the deadline, which was when my mom texted her, saying she would report her for withholding necessary information for her to get assistance from the government. About an hour with no response, my mom decided to get in her car and drive to the big boss himself, Chris. He owned the salon that Trish and her husband managed along with 5 other salons with 30-plus years of experience in the business. She started over to his main office and told him that she needed to know when her last day was and when the last time she got paid was because she needed food stamps. Chris asked her if she had been let go and she said yes, to which she replied, "Want to come clean my salon?" Turns out his main salon hadn't had a cleaning lady for 2 weeks. My mother instantly agreed, and since he saw her work at the old salon when Trish and her husband went to Vietnam to visit family, she was hired on the spot, starting in a few days. It's been about a week since she started and she loves it there. The people are also Hispanic, so she's able to talk and communicate with them amazingly, and they aren't toxic and pick up their own slack. It's a low bar to pass, but let's just say the people at her last salon, except for Lisa, are masters at limbo. Since she left, they hired an older man who, according to Lisa, sucks at cleaning. only doing the salon tables that the nail techs worked on. The staff is toxic and dramatic as ever, with Trish going as far as to try to argue with Lisa over giving her client her number. Lisa quickly shut her down, pointing out that her clients always have to wait, while other clients are always seen right away, probably due to Lisa being the only Hispanic nail tech while everyone else is Vietnamese. And on top of that, when Trish first brought up firing my mother, one of the other employees started clapping and cheering, somewhat chanting, "Fire her, fire her." Absolutely disgusting. My mom is now trying to convince Lisa to jump ship to join her at the boss's salon, which seems to be going well. My mom has impressed her bosses, Chris and his brother, Chan, with Chan going so far as to hire her to clean his house. The people she works with are a combination of Vietnamese and Hispanic, and there isn't any drama. She is super happy with her hours. Originally, she worked 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. with Mondays off, but her new place has her 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., with a 3-hour break and going back at 3 p.m. to help clean and close. I'm starting to suspect that Chris is looking into Trish because of how she overworked my mother, and between Trish's salon being dirty, the people being bratty, and unwilling to wipe their own asses, and their overall racist behavior, I think it's safe to say that the salon is sinking fast. Good. Let them sink. 4. Some details are vague because while I feel ready to share this story, I still have PTSD flashbacks and anxiety fears of her popping up at my doorstep. Context that led up to my petty revenge. This happened about 5 years ago. My ex-wife and I were married for about 2 years, together for 5. Things were declining in our relationship, badly. Well, my ex found another partner. Instead of just leaving or starting divorce proceedings, they decided I needed to be the bad guy so they could ride off into the sunset or something. I have mental health issues that I was actively seeing a therapist for. I'm not saying she had to stay and deal with my mental health issues. She gaslit, manipulated, and used my mental health against me. A side effect of most of my mental disorders is poor short-term memory. She would regularly say things like that didn't happen, or I was remembering something wrong. My ex also had her new partner helping her as well. It was hard to tell what was up from down. They both were telling me I was a horrible person, and it was difficult not to believe it, as it was already 2 versus 1. But they would also rope in mutual friends as well. This caused me to spiral worse than I already was, even though I was already in therapy to try to get better. They put me down constantly, told me I was fat and unattractive, killing what little self-esteem I had. My ex even told me one day that she'd fallen out of love with me shortly after we got married. Everything hurt so much. Well, like any beaten dog, eventually I snapped and lashed out after a fight with my ex. It was one of the darkest moments of my life. She declared we were done. She told me she was moving out shortly thereafter. I was at rock bottom. She moved out a month and a half later and removed herself off the lease at the beginning of the following month. My ex didn't take everything with them, despite the fact that I didn't fight them. It was her stuff. More importantly, she left behind a $12,000 paperweight of a car she was still making payments on. Thankfully, at the time she got the car, I had seen how horrible the reviews were for that make and model, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I refused to put my name in that vehicle. I ended up being right. It wasn't even a year after she got it, the transmission was destroyed, and there it sat in the driveway. For some context, my landlord had a clause in our lease against broken-down vehicles just sitting on the property, and the city did too. So I kept asking her when she was going to come get it. I got the runaround. She'd say she'd come get it, then either went silent or pushed the day back. My ex even tried to convince me to lie and say it was mine. I flat told her no. I didn't want to wind up in trouble for having a broke-down car that wasn't even in my name. During this time, I ended up befriending a neighbor who was determined to dust me off and get me back up on my feet. Well, between my neighbor and my therapist, they finally got through to me that I didn't deserve any of this and that she needed to get her crap already. Now for the revenge. Weeks of going back and forth with her to come get her stuff. It was now over 30 days since my ex had been taken off the lease. The idea of her popping up whenever she wanted made me extremely anxious, so I vented to my neighbor. They pointed out that I could have the car towed. I got an idea and we plotted. I gathered up the last of her stuff from inside the house and put it inside the car, and then called the non-emergency number to report an abandoned car. They sent someone out and got my info, and some info on the car and put a sticker on it. They said that the owner had 72 hours to remove it, or I could remove it. I warned my ex one last time that she needed to come get her car. Silence. 4 days go by, and I still hadn't gotten anything from her to make plans to come get this stupid broken-down car. Enough was enough. I called a tow company and had them come pick it up. The best part was it was at her expense. She would have to pay them when she finally decided to do something about the car. My neighbor filmed and took pictures while the tow guy loaded it up and sent it to my ex, giggling like a maniac the whole time. Once the car was gone, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't ever felt before. My ex has zero legit reason to return to my house. My phone was blowing up within the hour from my ex, who suddenly had plans to remove the car that she had neglected to fill me in on, now bombarding me with angry texts stating I was trying to ruin her life. I told her that I wasn't, that I had warned her repeatedly and she had ignored me, and all I wanted was to be left alone. If I was the bad guy, fine, I accepted that. I then blocked her and locked down all of my social media. I felt like I could finally begin to heal and move on with my life. Not going to lie, it felt good to get some payback for the last 10 months she had made my life hell. 5. So I, a 34-year-old male, lived in a nice, quiet neighborhood. Most of my neighbors are elderly, and we get along pretty great. That was until my new neighbors moved in. Couple, around my age, with a baby and a dog. They never pick up after their dog, and yes, I've asked them to pick up a few times. It got to the point I stopped asking, as I don't have a dog, and it's annoying having to watch my steps walking in my yard. I feel I shouldn't have to pick it up. I've tracked dog crap into my house once it was late night, and it sent me over the edge. But I kept my cool because I hate blowing up on people, and plus, I've asked so they know it's out there. Their dog barks constantly, day and night, lunged at a couple walking by, and is never on a leash. Never on a leash. I don't know what breed it is, but it's a massive dog, easily over 110 pounds. It's a big dog. The police even came to their house telling them to leash the dog or animal control will be called. Our HOA states all dogs must be kept on a leash or an invisible fence at all times when outside. I know this because I read the whole HOA book. The book has breed restrictions, but not weight restrictions. So you can have a big dog, but only certain breeds aren't allowed in our neighborhood. I once overheard them laughing about me asking them to pick it up, like it was a comical thing to ask. I didn't say anything about it because I knew how I was going to handle it. My neighbors got a new roof put on their house in February. So for the past 5 months I've been going out late at night and throwing it on top of their roof with a shovel. Their brand new roof is littered in dog shit. Where we live, it rains a lot during the spring, so all that poop is just turning into liquid as the spring season went by. And now that it's July, it's just cooking up there. I've never smelt it, but I know it's been cooking. Today, 7/9/23, it's 98 degrees, pretty hot but nice out. And it's finally happened. The wife, guessing they're married, is yelling at the husband that their whole upstairs smells like crap. I can hear this because I'm sitting on my back porch right now sipping some iced tea. They can't figure out why or how. The gagging is what made me laugh the most. I don't want the dog hurt or killed. I know it has to go somewhere, it can't hold its crap forever. I know this, but Pick up after your dog. It's not my dog. I shouldn't have to clean up after it. You're welcome, neighbors. Signed, your petty neighbor. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 277. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do boop the like button. If you'd like to get the videos a little bit early, you can support me on Patreon for as little or as much as you like a month. You can find the link in the description and on the screen right now. You can also buy yourself some Hellfreezer merchandise. We have lovely hoodies and t-shirts and mugs and things like that. And you can also make one-off donations during streams and videos like this one if you wish to do so. While this is not required, it does help keep the lights on. Okay, I don't think there's any other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: what is the most fascinating but needlessly dangerous thing you have recently seen? Or, well, it doesn't have to be recent, okay? It's just, I'm thinking of, I don't want to call it a trend, but I've seen a few of them. I've seen on YouTube, and probably on TikTok as well, I dare say, where people are using those little metal popcorn devices. It's like a little barrel, then there's a pressure gauge on it, and then they whack it after they heat it to the barrel to a certain temperature, and it explodes with popcorn into a bag. Right. Those things are terrifying. There was actually, because I saw another video on the Sorted Food channel, they had one come up today, but I've seen other people do it. I even saw someone use a giant one, and that was, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And this was someone, I think it was the channel, was it Vansai? It was that channel? And this is someone I don't want using anything explosive, because he once had a caramel explosion that went right in his face. So yeah, those things, it's fascinating, but guys, please stop. We have better, safer ways of making popcorn. Or just go to the shops and buy a bag. Anyway, do let me know what you think in a comment below. Some examples you might have seen. I look forward to reading them. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.